To fail Adolf Hitler meant more than just professional downfall. It was an outright death sentence. As Nazi Germany teetered on the brink of collapse, Hitler's paranoia intensified, leading to the merciless punishment of military leaders who failed to meet his unrealistic expectations. Disloyalty, perceived or real, was met with swift and brutal retribution, which led to the destruction of even the most decorated members of Hitler's inner circle. Indeed, it was a reign of terror, one in which even a single military blunder could cost you not just your career, but your life. Today we'll discuss the cruel fate of the Nazi generals who, in one way or another, sparked distrust in Hitler's heart, leading to their ultimate downfall. Heinrich Hoppner was a renowned military general, recognized for his expertise in warfare and for commanding the 4th Panzer Group during Operation Barbarossa, the ambitious invasion of the Soviet Union launched in June 1941. Initially, Hoppner aligned with Hitler's vision for a swift, decisive victory. However, as winter set in and the Red Army mounted a fierce counter-offensive, Hoppner faced a critical decision. In January 1942, recognizing the untenable situation of his forces, he ordered a retreat to prevent their destruction. This act of pragmatism enraged Hitler, who viewed any retreat as a sign of weakness. In a fit of fury, Hitler dismissed Hoppner from command and stripped him of his rank and pension. This punishment not only highlighted Hoppner's military failure, but also the regime's intolerance for opposition. The Battle of Stalingrad stands as one of the most catastrophic clashes of World War II, a conflict that destroyed the German 6th Army and marked a turning point in the war. Fueled by Hitler's obsession with capturing Stalingrad, the operation was led by Major General Friedrich Wilhelm Ernst Paulus, whom Hitler considered highly credible due to his service in World War I and his actions in France and the Balkans. Paulus was widely regarded as a talented officer, and by the time World War II broke out, he had been promoted to Major General. In the summer of 1942, Hitler launched Operation Blue, aiming to capture Stalingrad and secure vital oil fields in the Caucasus. The German 6th Army, under Paulus, advanced rapidly, and by October had taken most of the city. However, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin ordered that Stalingrad be defended at all costs, mobilizing every available soldier and civilian. When winter came, Zhukov initiated the counterattack Operation Uranus, striking Paulus's forces in November 1942 and encircling the Nazis, cutting off their supply lines and leaving them in an impossible position. After being cut off, Paulus repeatedly asked Hitler for permission to surrender. All these requests were rejected. Hitler's orders were simple: Stalingrad must be held at any cost. The costs of disobedience were black and white. Failure meant death, not just for Paulus, but for his entire force. By January 1943, the 6th Army was in dire straits, starving, running out of ammunition, and under constant Soviet attack. Morale plummeted. On January 30th, 1943, General Friedrich Paulus received an unexpected message from Hitler. He was promoted to Field Marshal, an honor laced with a sinister expectation. No German field marshal had ever been captured alive, and Hitler's implication was clear: fight to the last man or take his own life. For weeks, Paulus had begged for permission to surrender, knowing his men were doomed. Hitler refused 3 times, insisting they hold their ground. Now, with no supplies left and his soldiers collapsing from hunger and cold, Paulus faced an impossible choice. On the morning of January 31st, 1943, he made his decision. Ignoring Hitler's unspoken demand for suicide, Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus surrendered to the Soviets, becoming the first German officer of his rank to be taken alive. This act was not only a failure for the army, but also a personal challenge to Hitler's ban on surrender. During his captivity, Paulus grew increasingly critical of the Nazi regime, joining the National Committee for a Free Germany, an organization aimed at encouraging German soldiers to oppose Hitler's war efforts. Before we continue, take a moment to like and subscribe to Before Now for more intriguing videos about history's most complex and disturbing events. About a year later, in the early hours of July 20th, 1944, as the sun rose over the Wolf's Lair in East Prussia, High-ranking military officials gathered for what they believed could be a turning point in the war. The conspirators, disillusioned by Hitler's disastrous leadership, aimed to assassinate him and seize control to negotiate peace with the Allies through the flawed Operation Valkyrie. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, a central figure in this plot, took the bull by the horns by planting a bomb in the conference room. The resulting explosion did not kill Hitler. Instead, he emerged with minor injuries, sparking chaos among the conspirators who had anticipated his death. In the aftermath of this failed coup, paranoia gripped the Nazi leadership. The regime swiftly responded with brutal purges. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, a respected general who had previously criticized Hitler's strategies, was implicated merely for being mentioned in connection with the plot. Faced with the choice of public disgrace or Rommel chose the latter. He took poison, ensuring a swift death, while the Nazis concocted a false narrative claiming he had died from battle wounds. The repercussions of Operation Valkyrie were severe. Over 7,000 individuals were arrested under suspicion of conspiracy, and nearly 5,000 were executed. This included not only direct participants, but also anyone perceived as a threat. The Gestapo conducted secret trials that often ended in swift executions without due process. Heinrich Hoppner, previously stripped of his rank, was caught in the web of this plot and arrested by the Gestapo. Subjected to torture and denied any semblance of a fair trial, he was executed by hanging at Plötzensee prison in Berlin on August 8, 1944, just hours after being sentenced to death. Reports indicate that he was hung with piano wire, a method designed to prolong suffering. These purges extended beyond immediate conspirators, creating an atmosphere of fear within Germany's military and civilian ranks. Many officers who had previously harbored doubts about Hitler's leadership now found themselves silenced or eliminated. Hitler's actions were not just about punishing opponents, but also about instilling terror to deter any future resistance. The failed assassination attempt not only revealed deep internal divisions within Nazi Germany, but also triggered a chain reaction of violence that scarred German society long after the war ended. Not long after Operation Valkyrie, the once seemingly unstoppable Nazi government was crumbling. Allied armies closed in, and defeat became imminent. Yet, in his Berlin bunker, Adolf Hitler descended further into paranoia and rage. His solution wasn't surrender, it was his weapon of choice, the infamous Nero Decree. On March 19, 1945, Hitler issued the Nero Befehl, or Nero Decree, named after the Roman Emperor Nero, who allegedly burned Rome to the ground. Officially titled Decree Concerning Demolitions in the Reich Territory, it commanded the complete destruction of all German infrastructure, factories, power plants, railways, bridges, communication lines, everything of value. Hitler aimed to deny the Allies any resources and cripple Germany, even if it meant the death of his own people. Why would Hitler order such a thing? During that period, he believed the German people had failed him. In his view, they were unworthy of their great mission, and he preferred annihilation to surrender. This wasn't the first time he had tried to destroy infrastructure. He had previously ordered the destruction of Paris and the Netherlands, but this time he was determined to see it through. On March 29, 1945, Albert Speer, Hitler's Minister of Armaments and War Production, was tasked with implementing this insane order. As a close confidant, Speer had been devoted to Hitler for years. However, he recognized the Nero Decree for what it was, a devastating and pointless act of destruction. In a calculated move, Speer requested exclusive power to implement the plan, then used that power to ensure it failed. He persuaded generals and Gauleiters to ignore it, arguing that the resources would be needed after the war. Essentially, he shifted his loyalty from Hitler to the German people. This act of defiance thwarted the Nero Decree, largely thanks to Speer's deliberate sabotage. While he had faithfully served Hitler for years, the final betrayal, however self-serving, revealed the desperation and irrationality gripping the Nazi leadership. Germany was left in ruins, but not completely destroyed. On the other hand, Albert Speer attempted to distance himself from Hitler's crimes. At the Nuremberg trials, he insisted he had no knowledge of the Holocaust, a claim many found highly doubtful. Nevertheless, he escaped the death penalty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity. During the final weeks of Nazi Germany and World War II in Europe, many civilians, government officials, and military personnel throughout Germany and German-occupied Europe took their own lives. In addition to Adolf Hitler, high-ranking officials like Joseph Goebbels, Heinrich Himmler, and Philipp Buhler chose over accepting the defeat of Germany. The key factors driving these were fear of reprisals, especially from the Soviets, Nazi propaganda glorifying death before surrender, and a deep sense of despair after Hitler's demise. Life magazine reported, "In the last days of the war, the overwhelming realization of utter defeat was too much for many Germans. Stripped of the bayonets and bombast which had given them power, they could not face a reckoning with either their conquerors or their conscience." In essence, the fate of these Nazi generals underscores a crucial lesson. Blind obedience to a flawed leader can have catastrophic consequences. It highlights the importance of critical thinking, moral courage, and the willingness to challenge authority, even under extreme pressure. What do you think? Could you have defied Hitler? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing videos on history's most complex and disturbing events. See you next time.